Hey, fourth grade, it's Miss Toggeting. We are going to start our brand new story for this week. It is called Twins in Space. Can Twin Astronauts Help Us Get to Mars? By Rebecca Boyle. This is a magazine article, so it is a nonfiction piece. The things in here are real facts, but it doesn't quite tell a story in the same way the last two stories we've had are. So I'm going to go ahead and read and point out some things as I read, and then you'll answer some questions throughout the story. Here we go. One day at breakfast, Mark Kelly couldn't resist sharing his food with his identical twin brother, Scott. He couldn't really share it because Scott was too far away. So he sent his brother a picture. Sometimes when he sends me pictures of his breakfast, I'm a little envious. Scott said in reply, but he knew his brother was just teasing him. Why would Scott feel jealous about breakfast? Because you can't get a hot, fresh toast in space. So after reading the first two paragraphs of this article, I can see that one of the twins is on Earth and the other one is actually in outer space. I wonder why only one of them is in outer space when the title of the story is Twins in Space. So as I read, I'm going to be kind of wondering about that. Up and down. Scott is the commander of the International Space Station, ISS, where he has been living for a year. His twin Mark is also an astronaut, but he has spent the last year on Earth. So there's a picture of Mark Kelly, one of the twins. Mark eats regular Earth food, exercises outside, and lives his life as usual. Scott only eats fresh food when cargo ships bring it to space. He can only exercise on a special zero-gravity treadmill and can't go outside without a spacesuit. There are other differences too. Up in space, Scott gets zapped with more energetic radiation than Mark. And of course, Scott floats around instead of walking. NASA is studying everything that happens to both twins during the year, with the goal of finding out how living in space affects the human body. They already know that astronauts often get headaches, their eyesight changes, their bones and muscles get weak, and they are more likely to get sick. Scientists wonder whether staying in space longer makes these problems worse. The twins are helping them answer these questions, and that will help prepare future astronauts for long missions to Mars or other distant places. So reading about the differences between Mark's and Scott's daily lives is kind of crazy. Mark lives just like the rest of us do, but Scott can't go outside or eat fresh food. I would feel trapped if I couldn't go outside. Scott must have a good reason for joining this International Space Station because, he's missing out on a lot of stuff. So here's the other one, astronaut Scott Kelly. So this is the one that's in space. And then his twin brother is the one that stays on Earth. Duplicate astronauts. The twins came up with the idea after Scott was chosen for NASA's one-year ISS mission. The brothers asked NASA how they should show questions about having a twin who is also an astronaut, and NASA spotted a rare chance to do research. Space flight affects everyone a little differently, and every person's health is different. So how can you tell which changes in health are caused by being in space and which would have happened anyway? It would help if you could make a copy of your astronaut to stay on the ground. As a comparison, call in the twins. Scott and Mark are identical, so they share the same DNA. They are also both astronauts, so their overall health and training is pretty similar. But how different will Scott be after his year in space? So I see two blue vocabulary words that we'll be practicing this week. And there's a picture. It says, from the International Space Station, Scott has a great view of Earth and 15 sunrises a day. As Susan Bailey, a scientist at Colorado State University who is studying the twins, puts it, because they are identical, or at least as identical as people can get, We can say that any difference we see between the twins is not due to differences in their DNA, but what spaceflight has actually done to the human body. That's why the twins are so important. To help Bailey study those differences, the brothers give themselves medical tests at the same time. They measure themselves every day and give regular blood and other waste samples. Scott's samples get sent to Earth on supply shuttles and are flown to a lab in Colorado, where they are analyzed and compared to Mark's. So when I read about how the twins have to measure themselves every day and give themselves medical tests, I think about how much work that must be. I know when I go to the doctor, I don't really want to have tests done to me. So the twins must be very committed to helping space and learning about how space affects things to do all those tests to themselves. And there's a picture of Scott's space. It says it's his space on the ISS. It shows how cozy it is, his blankets. Bungee cords and Velcro keep his stuff from floating around. A dream job. Giving samples might not be the first thing that comes to mind when you think about astronauts, but it's part of the job, and it's a job the Kelly brothers both wanted since they were little kids. Scott and Mark remember watching the 1969 Apollo 11 moon landing when they were 5 years old and plotting to build their own rocket. Eventually, they both joined the Navy and became test pilots. They both applied to NASA in 1995 and were chosen as astronauts the following year. So this is kind of cool because we just read Buzz Aldrin reaching for the moon, and it refers to it. That's the 1969 Apollo 11 mission. So we definitely know these twins are a lot younger than when the people that went to the moon, because they were kids when the Apollo 11 mission happened. They are the only pair of twins to both fly in space, but they have never been in space at the same time, and they've never switched places. Although, on the day Scott blasted off for the International Space Station, Mark couldn't resist a little joke. He shaved off his mustache and startled the flight controllers when he walked in looking like Scott, who does not have a mustache. He fooled us all, NASA Chief Charles Bolden told Scott on a phone call later. That's the only way I can tell you two apart. They both say they don't compete with each other, but they do tease each other a little bit. For instance, Mark likes to point out that he's the older brother by just 6 minutes. But when his year in space is up, Scott's body will probably seem older, just because spaceflight is so stressful. So a couple things, I think it's pretty crazy that they've never traded spots before or tried to trick people, because I feel like that's what I hear twins doing all the time. Also, the author says that even though Mark is older, Scott's body will seem older after his time in space. So I'm kind of wondering, well, what's going to happen to his body? It kind of makes me have some questions. Here's a picture. It says hands-free snacking is fun in 0G, but going outside takes some serious preparation. Notice the speed limit, 17,500 sign. That's how fast the ISS is going as it orbits Earth. Oh my goodness, that is fast. All right, next section, my older, younger brother. Bailey is especially interested in bundles of DNA called chromosomes. A chromosome looks like an X or Y made of long, twisted up strings of DNA. Caps at the ends of the arms are called telomeres. Every time a cell divides, the telomere gets a little shorter. Eventually, there is no cap left, and that individual cell will die. Your body is replacing worn-out cells all the time. But when they wear out too quickly, it can cause health problems. Radiation and stress can shorten telomeres too, Bailey says, and astronauts experience both. Imagine strapping yourself to a rocket, launching yourself to space and staying there for a year, she says. The isolation, the physical stress, the emotional stresses, and the radiation exposure, all the things we don't have happen here on Earth. When she looks at Scott's blood, she expects to see his telomeres getting shorter at a faster rate than his brother's. That means that the stress of space is aging Scott more rapidly than Mark. So these paragraphs are telling us about what happens to the chromosomes, which are things that are in your DNA. Earlier in the text, the author mentioned that because Mark and Scott are identical twins, they have the same DNA. This part of the text must be important about what would happen to one of the twins because of the time that's spent in space. Bailey's study is just one of the many. Scientists are also comparing the helpful bacteria that live inside the brothers' stomachs to see how these microbes change in space. Another study will give the twins the same flu shot and compare how their bodies react to it. Yet another looks at how their vision changes over time. At the end of the year, the astronauts will be the most studied people on or off the planet, Bailey says. Identical. Well, mostly. All through your life, what you eat and do can change with bits of DNA instructions. Are switched off or on inside cells. Radiation and stress can also change DNA. As twins get older, they get less alike, though they are still more alike than other people. All right, last section, home and away. Although spaceflight can be stressful, Scott says the astronauts have a comfortable home on the International Space Station. When he's not busy doing spacewalks or working on science experiments, he takes photos of Earth, writes emails to his family and friends, and watches football. When he misses Earth, sometimes he and the other astronauts play recordings of birds, rain, and other sounds. He misses his family and friends, but he really misses going outside, he says. So here's a picture from space of Australia. It says Australia looks glorious from the station window. This is a very closed environment. We can never leave. The lighting is always pretty much the same. The smells, the sounds, everything is the same, he says. Even most prisoners can get outside occasionally, I think, but we can't. And that's what I miss, after people. And a hot breakfast, too. And then here's the last picture of the story. It says, the green glow is the northern lights, a rain of energetic particles from the sun colliding with gas in the upper atmosphere. And so that's what it looks like from outer space. And so I noticed Scott talks a lot about how much he misses things like going outside, and that even prisoners, someone in jail is allowed to go outside. So, man, it really surprises me that Scott volunteered to do something when it makes him miss out on so many things. So that is our story for this week. We will be doing a lot of different things to practice some different skills with it. Make sure you are practicing the vocabulary words that were in blue. Those will be in your Quizlet all week. And as well as some different activities, you'll refer back to this story. If you have any questions, let us know, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.